back to another episode of Bull of Brill. I'm joined again by Brandon. How are you?
Great, thanks, Taylor.
So, I saw an article today. HDMI cables. Apparently, people are able to hack into the radio waves or something. Can you explain it, please?
Yeah, so the report shows that that they found a vulnerability in the HDMI standards where they can intercept the picture with 70% accuracy using the electromagnetic radiation coming from the cable. So I would have to imagine it'd be pretty close to be able to successfully steal images from an HDMI cable, but it's the same as anything in a public space. There's a vulnerability that allows people to intercept your phone by using a public charging station if it's malicious. So when you're in public, try to avoid doing anything sensitive on your devices, particularly your banking.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
If at all possible.
Sure. So, like, say if you were sitting like at a uni library or something, using a HDMI between the tower and the monitor, could they technically intercept that information?
Probably. You'd have to be pretty close.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the electromagnetic radiation coming from a HDMI cable would be that immense.
Yeah.
But they could. So, again, just don't do anything sensitive in public.
Fair enough.
Generally, if you are in a uni library displaying something on a TV, it's probably either a PowerPoint or a working document or something. So you're not that much of a risk.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you don't
be doing any groundbreaking discoveries or anything that you
That's
don't
right.
know about yet.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, shall we get into today's podcast?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
A bit of a mishmash. We're doing digital hygiene, so we don't really have, set questions. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be fun. So
Yeah.
more exciting. All right. So, first off, we have more RAM always makes your PC faster.
No, it doesn't. When you have a slow computer, it could be a variety of things. It could be a faulty solid-state drive. It could be a Windows corruption. It could be malware. It could be a wide variety of things. So more RAM doesn't necessarily make your PC faster, but it definitely helps.
Sure.
So RAM, there are two types of storage in a computer. So there's the permanent storage, which is the SSD or the hard drive, and then there's the RAM. So the RAM is where everything is stored before it is saved to the solid-state drive.
Yep.
So the more of it you have available, the less rationing the computer has to do with its resources.
So that's where like your autosave and stuff comes in. That's in RAM? Yeah.
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 So before anything is written permanently, it's stored in your RAM.
Sure.
When a PC is running low on RAM, Windows or whatever the operating system you're running has to ration those resources out to make sure the PC can keep running.
Sure.
So the more RAM you have, the better.
Sure. All right. I'll shred it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, next up, we have you need to defrag modern hard drives.
Are you trying to stump me here, Taylor?
Well, it's like your computer's running slow, maybe not so much now, and be like, oh, have you run a disk defrag? Have you done this? Like, it was kind of one of the first troubleshooting things you would do.
Yeah. Defragging was something that you would have to do in the early days of computers. So if you imagine, say, a frag grenade for all the Counter-Strike fans out there, you throw a frag grenade and there's fragments that fly everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the same concept with physical spinning disk hard drives. So over time, data can be dispersed all over the hard drive. And what a defragging process does is it reassigns segments of data that may be related but on opposite sides of the disk. So it did have a performance benefit when we were using mechanical hard drives. In most modern computers now, you don't have to do that because we have solid-state drives. And solid-state drives don't have any mechanical processes behind them, so you don't need to do a defrag on them. Operating systems generally optimize themselves nowadays, but a defrag is actually counterintuitive for an SSD. You'll just wear it out.
There you go.
So, yeah, no.
Right. Shred it.
Shred it.
All right, next up, we have overclocking can reduce the lifespan of your computer's components.
Absolutely, it can.
Right.
If you overclock something wrong, you can fry it.
Yeah.
Or you'll experience horrendous instability.
Yeah.
So hardware manufacturers deliberately set speeds for their devices at factory that are the most stable for that platform. Once you go over those clock speeds, or whatever the measure it is, depending on the device, you're on your own. And you've got to know what you're doing if you overclock your devices. Otherwise, you could do some pretty serious damage.
Especially because some of it's voltage related, right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you over voltage a CPU, you'll fry the CPU or the motherboard or any
Yeah.
component really.
Sure.
So overclock at your own risks.
Yep.
You've got to know what you're doing when you do that sort of thing. So when you're buying a new computer, and say you're a PC enthusiast and you buy a Intel K CPU, which allows for overclocking on Intel devices, be very, very, very careful.
Okay. Amazing. Well, we'll leave that one there because it's true.
Yeah.
Next up, sort of similar, is changing the BIOS settings can damage hardware.
Not necessarily hardware.
Yeah.
Modern devices have a secure boot function, which stores different keys within the system itself to make sure that the operating system that is booting hasn't been intercepted by anything malicious.
Sure.
So if you mess around with the BIOS and you set a setting that's incorrect, Windows may not boot,
Yeah.
but you won't necessarily damage the hardware. Now, I put a caveat on that.
Okay.
If you are doing a firmware update on your BIOS and you cut the power to that before the BIOS update, firmware update is finished, you will damage the computer.
Okay.
So if you're doing something advanced like that, make sure you've got a battery backup and don't cut the power to it under any circumstances until you boot it back into Windows. But generally, no. Changing the BIOS settings won't damage the hardware.
Okay. So you shred it? Leave
Yeah.
it, split it in half?
Shred it.
Shred it? Okay. All right. Next up, magnets can erase your hard drive.
How big are the magnets? Are they the size of the sun, or are they just a fridge magnet?
I don't know. We'll start with fridge magnet.
Fridge magnets. So fridge magnets can cause data corruption on
Yep.
the disk. It doesn't always
Yep.
completely erase the hard drive. To have any material impact, you need to have a pretty strong magnet that you put on the drive.
Sure.
But with that being said, I don't recommend you put a magnet anywhere near your hard drive. If you are wanting to erase your hard drive irretrievably, say you don't want to use the device ever again,
Yeah.
and you want to just dispose of it, the best thing to do is take the hard drive out, smash it with a hammer, and then you'll find a little foil sticker on it. Pierce that sticker,
Okay.
and that will make it too much of a pain in the backside to try and recover anything.
Okay.
Alternatively, ring your IT company,
Yep.
and they'll do a secure erase.
That's cool. Okay. Well, we'll shred that one, I guess. I suppose fridge magnet, yes. MRI, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And our final myth, we have I need to reapply thermal paste to my CPU.
That is true over time, absolutely. Thermal paste does thicken up and eventually becomes pretty hard after a few years.
Sure.
But it's best to get someone that's trained in IT to do it.
Yeah.
Thermal paste acts as a insulator, effectively. So it sends heat to the CPU cooler that disperses the heat in the case, and the fans take it out. Hard thermal paste, that's a few years old. It's not useless, but it becomes less efficient. So after, say, 3 to 5 years, get your IT person to reapply the thermal paste, but don't try and do it yourself.
Okay. And that's in every computer or laptops?
Yeah.
Or, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
there you go. That's a nice episode, I think. Something a little bit different for a change.
Yeah.
Not so heavy on the content. So,
Nice and easy.
yeah, well, thank you again for joining me.
Pleasure.
And clearing up some myths. And thanks, everyone, for coming to this week's episode of Bull or Brill.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.